Vocal revolution. Vocal revolution. Vocal revolution. Vocal revolution. Change the world with your voice.
Hello and welcome to the August edition of Vocal Revolution, Change the World with Your Voice, with Katie Rose, that's me. And this is a special episode, an unusual one in that it's just me, and I'm really dedicating this as a thank you to everyone who helped with my album launch. It was just an extraordinary process to go through to make an album over lockdown and to then launch it and have everyone come along. And thank you so much to everyone who has supported and downloaded and sent me feedback and helped me make it all happen. This is just really dedicated to saying thank you, and also to sharing a little bit about the story of making the album and my creative process in the hope that it might be of service to you on your creative journey. So I'm just going to start with a story, because we all love a story, don't we? Once upon a time, the earth goddess Demeter had a beautiful daughter called Persephone, and wherever she went, the flowers sprung up and the birds sang. And she was so beautiful that the god of the underworld, Hades, took a shine to her and wanted her for himself. So he made a deal with the god of heaven, Zeus, because he knew that her mother would never ever let him take her. So he bargained with Zeus that he could take Persephone. So the next time she was walking, he erupts out of the earth in a huge, great big puff of smoke and snatches her away and takes her away down into the underworld. And Demeter is wildly searching the earth for her daughter, and she cannot find her. And when she realizes what has happened, she rants and rails and goes to the god of the sky and says, "Please give me my daughter back." But Zeus can't help her because he's made a deal. So in the end, she goes on strike. She stops everything growing. People are running out of food. Trees are drying up. Lakes are drying up. The earth is barren. So Zeus has to relent and say, okay, you can go to the underworld and find your daughter. So she goes to collect Persephone. But however, in the meantime, Hades has tricked Persephone into eating 6 out of 12 pomegranate seeds. And that means that she has to stay in the underworld for 6 months of the year, because she's eaten of the underworld, so she is of the underworld. And for 6 months, when we have spring and summer, she returns to the earth to make the flowers grow and the birds sing. So it was that story, which I learned very long time ago in my childhood. That story inspired me to make what I called at the time Seeds of Passion. I had this idea for an album that would reflect the underworld of love as well as the beauty of love, all the different seasons that we can have, spring, summer, autumn and winter, that full spectrum of what love is. And understanding that love can be that multifaceted, that it can include loss, despair, betrayal, grief, as well as joy, ecstasy, bliss, laughter, fun, playfulness. So that was my initial mission that I set myself, and I was working on that in 2015. And then a whole load of stuff happened. I had to pass through some fires in my own life, let's say. And then I also found myself, as we all were, passing through lockdown, the fire of lockdown. And this whole idea, I'd always wanted the album to be themed around fire somehow. So this whole idea of it being called Flame came out of this feeling of we're passing through a fire, and the fire can be transformative, because we know a flame is destructive and it is creative. It can be a spark of inspiration, but it can also burn our house down. So it's that whole idea of love being a flame that then kind of guided me to make the album. And there's about 4 songs from the original, and the others are songs that I wrote during lockdown. And I wrote most of it at home, just as we all were at home, making music at home. And then I took it to my good colleague, Mike King, who very kindly agreed to master it for me. and mix it for me, and we had a wonderful time doing that over Zoom while he was in Barbados. And would you believe there was actually a volcano in the middle of that process? So for some period, that kind of was interrupted because he was so busy trying to recover, because the volcano was in St. Vincent and it covered all of the island of St. Vincent in heavy amounts of ash. Fortunately, nobody was killed, but huge amounts of ash and dust fell all over St. Vincent and also Barbados. So literally there was a huge eruption of fire in the middle of the making of the album. So that kind of derailed us a little bit, but nonetheless, despite all of that, and despite the fact we were on lockdown and not even knowing at some point whether Mike would be able to get back here and do the launch, somehow it all lined up for it to happen. And that's really just an incredible thing. And that was an incredible lesson to me, to keep going. To keep going. And that's one of the biggest things I learned, is that creativity is a form of strength. It's a form of resilience. It's a form of therapy, in a way, a form of healing. That I've always known that, but it gave me another personal, very personal experience of just how powerful it can be to be able to focus on a project through lockdown. I know many of us did that, whether it was doing DIY projects in our house or writing our books, or just doing the things that we've always wanted to do but hadn't had time to do, or spending time with our families. Lockdown gave us some space for that, hard as it was, and much as I wouldn't wish it on any of us. And of course, that's only for some of us. Some other people, other heroic people, just continued working all the way through and didn't have that luxury of perhaps more time. So I'm just grateful that I did have that time and chose to use it for this project, and that creativity and supporting other people to also remain creative and sing all the way through lockdown, that this has been a big journey for me, and one that I enormously appreciate. And I'm so very grateful to be standing here and have come through it. I know that it's not over, that we're still all battling, that we still have much to work through, that this is not the end of the story. We still have many things to face, including the winter here in Britain, and that we're now turning into the season of autumn, when the leaves will be reddening and falling. And one of the songs on the album is Autumn Leaves, and it was just, that archetypal song about grief and memory and nostalgia, which I always get a feeling of nostalgia in autumn. So that feeling is also in the album as we go into autumn. And I really want to thank the amazing musicians who join me to make this music possible for everyone to enjoy at the launch, particularly Mike, who came over, as I say, from Barbados and played piano on some of the tracks, and also Muna, or also known as Marcia Scoffrey, who sang some amazing vocals with me. Just so incredibly grateful to her. That was another kind of lockdown kind of miracle, really, that one day I was doing my daily walk, as we all were in those times, and I hear this voice shout out to me, "Hey, you're Katie Rose, aren't you?" And that was Muna. And we just kept bumping into each other as we were circling around Crystal Palace. And we formed this friendship. And then I discovered that she loved vocal a cappella music, and that we had that shared love. And so out of those discussions, I said, "Oh, well, hey, do you fancy being part of this?" And she very kindly agreed. And I'm really thrilled to say that we're now putting in some plans because everyone's been saying, what's next, which I'm really thrilled about, and, really excited about. So what's next is we're putting together some plans for a concert, possibly before Christmas, and we'll keep you posted on that. But I'm really excited to let you know about that soon. So please stay tuned. If you want to keep in touch, please just get in touch on social media, follow me there, or do join up to my newsletter, and you'll be the first to hear about it when it's announced. So really, it's just a huge thank you from me, and to say that these big fires, and there's fire happening all over the world. Europe has been on fire. We have not just coronavirus, but the challenge of climate change ahead of us. So these times are extremely, extremely difficult, but we can burn through it. And fire can be a transformative force, I believe, if we embrace all the difficulty and not deny it, not push it down, not pretend it's not happening, but really embrace all the difficulties. If we really face those head on, then I still believe as a human race we have a chance, and that we can build a better world for everybody. And that's my belief, and that's the challenge of Flame, is to have that faith, to walk through the fire, keep walking, keep going, because things do line up in a miraculous way. I really want to thank the church, St. John the Evangelist, who supported us to make the album happen, the album launch happen, and bring it into being. And that all happened very amazingly. So when I'm saying it, I'm just giving these examples. You will have your own of times when you've really committed to something, that things will line up for you and come into place to support you. And that doesn't mean you won't have your wobbly days where you think, oh my goodness, I wish I'd never started this, it's all going, up the pole. Yeah, you will have days like that, but just keep going. If you keep showing up for your creative dreams, keep showing up for you, keep showing up for your voice, for your creativity, magic will happen. So that's the message I want to leave you with. As I say, we'll be back in September with an audio podcast, and I'm really looking forward to sharing that with you. Thank you so much for your support. It really means so much to me.
Love can scorch, love can burn, love can spark burning desire. Love can set the world on fire. Love's a flame.